So for me it's
Hello.
afternoon. Me it's afternoon. For you guys it's evening, right? Almost evening.
Yes, it's evening,
Okay.
5 p.m.
Okay. I'll share my session, my desktop, and then we go here. So now my video stops working. There we go. Let me know if you see something.
Yeah, we are able to see your
Yeah.
screen.
Okay, no, then
Yes.
let's dive right in. So welcome to another great Microsoft 365 Saturday. Thanks to the sponsors because yeah, it's I know this because we organized one ourselves in Belgium, and yeah, going virtual also has an impact on sponsoring, of course, because yeah, how do you get sponsors if you do a virtual event? But yeah, there's no other way these days. And a special thanks I want to go to out to the organizers because yeah, even yeah, doing a live event is one thing, but doing it virtual takes more work. So let's dive right in. So we're gonna dive into Teams tabs today. The basic of tabs. We all know a tab in Teams, of course. You click the plus button and you can get an additional tab in your channel. So what are those tabs actually? Well, we have two types of tabs. We have a static tab and we have a configurable tab. Well, what's the difference between those two? Well, a static tab is more personal use and a configurable tab is more for everyone. So we have some scopes for those tabs. It's more the technical side of it. So we have a tab can be for a team, it can be personal, so just for me, and it can be for a group. So if you create a group chat, then you can also add a tab there. So those are the three tab scopes. Now, like I said, we have a personal tab, so that's a static tab, and that's always for a single person. So it's just one URL that gets hit in the backend, and it's just for one single person. And then we have our team tab or a group tab. That's always a configurable tab. So we always get this little configuration screen. It's shared by everyone. So take note of that because if it's shared by everyone, yeah, don't start doing, I don't know, secure data or something that only one person can see, like, I don't know, a paycheck or how much money he makes every month. Yeah, something HR related. Yeah, that's something not really that everybody should see. So be careful with what you do if you do have a configurable tab. You can, of course, have people log in or sign in, or even single sign on and silent sign on. So then you can put some secure data behind it. But remember, don't just put anything in a configurable tab. And this also means that you have to create multiple pages. So it's a little bit more work to create a configurable tab than it is to create a static tab. Because of course you have the configuration part and then the actual thing you want to show, and then there's also a removal part. So, but we'll dive right into that with a demo because yeah, I'm not the slide kind of guy. So let's just dive right in. Makes it a lot easier. Now I'm going to show you two things. It's going to be Visual Studio. I'll put this a little bit bigger so everybody can see this, and Visual Studio Code. So the cool thing about Teams is, okay, it's Node.js versus C#, but still the naming conventions and stuff like that, they're kept the same. So the Teams team has been pretty good at it to keep everything almost identical with the naming. So let's say you have a C# developer and a Node developer. Well, if they both develop for Teams, they can still get along. You can still, so if let's say you have an issue, if you Google something, don't just, yeah, if, oh, this is just for Node, this is not for C#. No, if you look at it, it's almost the same functionality. So that's a good thing. So remember that, take that into account. Now, the first thing we're going to start with is tell Teams, of course, we're building something. And how do we do that? Well, we have our manifest. Our manifest is a part of the Teams app package that we upload. So as you can see here, the Teams app package, what is it? It's just two icons, so a small icon and a big icon. Why? Because Teams needs to, of course, show those icons. So these are the ones. Those are the big ones. And then, of course, if you go to add an app, those are the small ones. I'm just taking the default ones. If you create one, there's going to be a default one, of course. And then we're going to create our manifest. Our manifest is just a JSON file that tells Teams, hey, Teams, I'm building a bot or a tab or an extension, whatever you want. You can tell Teams you're building that, because yeah, we cannot deploy anything on Teams because Teams runs somewhere in the cloud, somewhere next to Azure in one of those Microsoft data centers. So Microsoft is not allowing us to deploy something, but we can deploy an app, and that app just tells Teams, hey, I'm building something custom. It runs wherever I want it. So let's start with a simple thing, a static tab. A static tab is perfect. Let's say you already have an existing application or something. You can just port that application with a small amount of work to Teams. So I've created a basic lunch application. As you can see here, I have this URL. It goes to ngrok. Why? Because of course, Teams runs in the cloud and it needs to connect to, yeah, that URL needs to connect somewhere to the cloud because, yeah, I need to connect it to, yeah, I need to be able to access that code. Of course, I'm developing on my local machine, so yeah, I cannot, yeah, deploy. I can deploy to Azure and then change some code and deploy it again, but yeah, that's just cumbersome. You cannot debug that way. So what do? We have something called ngrok, and ngrok, well, that makes a connection. So it gives me a public URL, as you can see here, the Pro Teams Dev. It's a public URL, but actually it just tunnels everything to my local host. There are other solutions. This is just one of them. The only thing you need is actually something that ports a public URL and puts that into my local machine. So what are we going to tell Teams? Well, Teams, let's create a static tab. And that static tab, of course, it needs to have an ID. This is just for me as a developer for me. So I'll just call it lunch tab, but it needs to have a name. So that's more that the end user will see. And then you see you have a content URL and a website URL. Now, what's the difference between those two? If we go to Teams, you always know, let's take the wiki, for instance. Oh, no, the wiki doesn't have that. Let's take the files. Maybe the files has that. Yeah. Yeah. Also not, let me take another one, a website. So if I add a website, if I add Google, I don't know, HTTPS, there we go, Google or something. Yep, save. Then there's, oh yeah, we'll get to that later, why Google doesn't work. But as you can see, you always have this small icon here. So go to website. And that's the difference between those two. The content URL is a thing that gets shown here. And the website URL is what happens if somebody clicks the button. Now, why is that? Let's say, for instance, our lunch app. Well, it was already an existing lunch application. So people just go here to order lunch. So if I click this one, let me start up my Visual Studio, of course. Otherwise, I cannot access anything. Give me 1 sec. There we go. We're good to go. So if we go to our lunch tab, this will be our local host. But if I go to my public location, so this is my public URL, you guys can access it as well. Then you can see this will do HTTP requests, see, to everything that it's running all locally. So this is my lunch application. Of course, we have some navigation here and stuff like that. Well, in Teams, we don't want that navigation, of course. Why? Because, yeah, there's already a back button here. There's already buttons here. There's buttons everywhere in Teams. If we're going to add our own custom navigation as well, it's going to get crowded and it's going to get, a little bit, difficult for the end user to see the difference. Okay, how do I navigate here and how do I navigate between the other one? So that's why Microsoft gave us two URLs to put in. This one, the content URL, and there we can say, I made it pretty simple. If you call this content URL, so in the small thing of Teams, so in the small window of Teams, then just add a query string. The context is, of course, Teams. So pretty simple. Let's just add this one. I already uploaded the app, of course. So this is my company app. Oh, no, this is, of course, a configurable tab. This is my company app, so a static tab for me alone. As you can see here, nothing special. The only thing I removed is, of course, the navigation. So if I go here, where did it go? It's this one, I guess. Yeah, here's my navigation. I can go to home and I can go to order lunch and all that stuff. Here, I removed that one. Pretty simple in Visual Studio. Of course, I just make two shared views. So I have a normal layout, as you can see here. This is my normal one. And then I have a layout for lunch. And the only thing I do here is if I go to my lunch controller, so I normally have a lunch controller. So if I go here, I just take the query string. If the query string has context Teams in it, then use the layout for lunch. Otherwise, use a normal one. And that way we can already differentiate, okay, when is the user coming from Teams and when is the user coming from not Teams, just a normal browser. So if I click on this one, I'm just added to the normal lunch one. And here I'm having the without the navigation. So that was already a quick tip. Now, for the rest, this doesn't do. It's a simple lunch application. You can view the code. It's pretty basic. I just pulled it out of my head. Nothing super fancy. So we can just order some lunch. I can just order a lunch here. This is just personal for me. Now, for the configurable tab, it's a little bit different. Why? Because if we start with the configurable tab, let's go back to our manifest. in our config, of course, you saw that the scope was personal because a static tab always has a personal scope. So it's just for me. You can add more here, but yeah, like a team and a group chat, but it won't do anything because the static tab is always personal. A configurable tab, so that's the one you add to a team or to a chat, has a little bit different, works a little bit different. Why? Because yeah, there's no content URL or website URL. There actually is, but we have to set that in code. The only thing you can tell Teams is, okay, if you start up the configurable tab, if somebody adds it, go to the configuration URL. Then you can say, okay, can update configuration. This is pretty basic. If I click on this one, you see the settings button. If you want that to be added or not. If you set it to false, then that setting button will not appear. Otherwise, it will appear. And then, of course, our scope, so team or group chat. So this is within the team. So here, if I add it here, it's within the team, or I can have a group chat. So do I have a group chat here somewhere? No, not really. But if you have let me just quickly create one. Otherwise, let's use here Adele Vange probably, because this is a demo tenant, and Alex. So I just added 2 people. Let's have a group chat. And then here you can add a tab as well. So this is what I mean with a group chat. So if you add this here, so let's just add our app here, company app, and you see you have this configuration page. So the only thing that gets hit in the backend is this configuration page. So news.configure. Now, what happens in that configuration page? So if you go to our news controller, the only thing we're getting here is our configure page. So configure, what happens? Yeah, everything is in JavaScript, of course. What happens in our view? So if we go to our configuration of our news, so configure, then we get this small version, this small little radio button, as you can see here, radio button for some choice. What do you want? Do you want the news from America, Europe, or Asia? You can just choose. As you can see here, there's no logic in it. My control didn't do anything, and this doesn't do anything. Show some radio buttons. This is where the magic comes in. So if you want to interact with Teams, you need to access the Teams JavaScript SDK. So Teams does everything through the JavaScript SDK. Now, how does that work? So we have I think it's in our layout for lunch, as you can see here, we just add this Microsoft Teams.min.js. Quick tip, always check the latest version. I think there's already a new one, already 1.7. So you just add that, and then you can start adding logic to it. For Node.js, it's the same. So we have our static tab, so which is here, personal tab. On the other hand, Node.js, as you can see here, it's just a package. But we just import that. It's already added if you use the Teams generator or the Teams plugin for Visual Studio Code. So same thing for the news config as well. You already add the JS file, so the SDK, and then you can start doing stuff. Because if you don't do that, yeah, there's no way. As you can see, like the save button, it's disabled. Yeah, how do I enable the save button? Well, that's when the JavaScript SDK comes in. So we want to enable that save button. So everything I added is in my simple news configuration JS file. So don't look at this yet. This is all, no, this is the correct one. So we're going to initialize Teams. The first thing we do is to initialize Teams. I already did that in my other one. So Teams.initialize, I think it's, let me look at my view again. Where's my view of configuration? If I go too fast, let me know. So configure, news configuration.js. Okay, let's go to our news configuration.js. Yeah, so as you can see here, Microsoft.settings.set validity state to true means, okay, if that happens, then we can enable this save button. But first we want to do some logic. In this case, I want to know, okay, which is the office location of the user. So we can just say, okay, if this thing loads, if somebody clicks the button, so we do a click event on the submit order button, then we're going to say, where was my code? Okay, so if we do a click event, then we're going to save that data to my backend. And then once that data is saved, we do the save tab, and then we're going to say, okay, Teams, you can enable the save button. And the moment somebody clicks the save button, then we're going to set our website URL and our content URL and our entity ID. So the same things you saw in that static tab, but it's just not configured in your manifest. You have to do it in the backend code. And then Teams will know, okay, this is the website URL. And if it's shown in the small window, then I have to go to content URL. And then the entity ID is company news and the display name is news. And of course, we can even have a removal URL. So once I click something, so here's my screen. So let's take, I'm in Europe, so let's take Europe. See, I clicked submit order and then the save button got activated. Now, if I click the save button, Teams will execute this piece of little code. So on save handler. So the moment somebody saves something, and then I will tell Teams, hi Teams, I want a tab and these are the settings. So I want the tab. This is going to, with the additional query string, I'm always clicking the wrong one, with the additional query string, see, with the location, and this is the website URL. So if I open this one, if I go to the website, it doesn't know my location. It just goes to news and it just takes the first one, which is America. But in Teams, I know my location because I added it to the query string and it's Europe. So this is the news overview of my location. As you can see here, this was my setting. So I can re-add the setting. So you can choose another one. I can choose Asia and then save again. We do the same one. Now it's Asia. So you can, with the settings button, you can change stuff for other people. As you can see here, also it's called news because I set just that the display name, the suggested one is news. People, of course, can override that and say, okay, I don't want it news. I want it company news or something like that, whatever they want. But you do a suggestion to call it news or whatever you want. So that's the difference. So the magic actually just happens in the Teams JavaScript SDK. You can do a lot more with that. So let me just take the node one because we haven't started that one yet. So let's start this one up. Shouldn't take too long. There we go. We're already running. Once again, this will do a local host and my ngRock will point that. So this is the two. I have two ones running and this one goes to my local host 3000. So if I go to, let's see if it's online. If I go to this one, then it should be working. See, this is the 2.1. If it's running, it's not running. Give it a few minutes. Give it a few. Still starting development server. As you can see here, should be good to go. Come on. There we go. Takes a lot of time to warm up, I see. Once we have this running, come on, Visual Studio Code. Come on, a little bit faster. There we go. We should be running now. As you can see, because I'm not running, if I go to my requests, as you can see, it's doing get requests, but nothing is coming back because my development server is also not running. So the cool thing about this is that you can also see what requests are coming in. So say, see, now you saw that pop up. So we're good to go. It's calling our static and our JavaScript files and everything. So if I do a refresh now, then it should be good to go. Is it running? Yep. I don't show anything. It's just empty screen. It only shows in Teams. Of course, Rick. So if we take our company node, this is our static one. There we go. Now, one of the simple things that I start out with is, of course, you can have different types of teams in Teams. Yeah, it's teams in Teams. I can just say, okay, I want to go to settings and I want the default, the dark one, or the high contrast. It's a little bit stupid if you let users do default dark or high contrast and your app doesn't go along with it. Your app just sticks out like a sore thumb with different colors and different icons. So that's not fun. So let's just add that one. So what do we do here? Okay, where's my app.js? No, this is the app.js. Where's my personal tab? Here you go. So the moment we start up our app, I have the same one in C#. So the moment we start up our app, where is it? Here we go. We render. So we render something. Then we're gonna check. Okay, what's the current theme that's used, and then we're gonna match that to the current theme. But of course, if somebody changes the theme, we also want to change the theme. So as you can see, the SDK has a lot of events receivers. So register on theme change handler. Then we're gonna say, okay, update the theme. So where's my update theme? I made it pretty simple. I just changed it to another theme in my app. So if I'm going back to my app. If I go to dark, as you can see, high contrast. So my Teams app just switch along with it. Yeah, okay. Don't laugh at my CSS skills. They're not that good, but so if we go to dark, as you can see, everything starts moving along. So every time, and that's what the Teams event receiver does for us, or the save handler, the change handler. So it will notify, Teams will notify the JavaScript SDK, hey, the theme has changed, and then it will notify our code, hey, the theme has changed, and then we can say, okay, once it's changed, please run this method, please run update theme. Another cool one is, for instance, enable print capability. Just add it simple to it, and if you want to, print our app, just click print, and it looks already pretty good. So see, it already makes our app look pretty good. There's a lot more of those. So there's a lot more event handlers and change handlers and things you can do. This is just the basic one. I'm recommending you always add this one because if you have an app and if you keep the colors the same when people change their theme, then it doesn't look good. So it doesn't look professional. So always implement this code for the beginning. It's boilerplate code. I know it should be automatic, but of course Microsoft can't know what CSS you're using. So here it does the same. It just you can order a BLT sandwich or a cheese sandwich. Nothing fancy. So let's get back to our slide because I have one next slide. Let's go. So remember how we communicate with Teams from our app, the Teams JavaScript SDK to the rescue. Always check what the latest version is. Just add a reference and initialize it, and we're good to go. Now let's go into our next demo. As you can see here, let's go. I'm not sure what you guys want, Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code. Let's just keep it Visual Studio. So we can do a lot more with our themes, of course, because as you can see here, we can also add it to SharePoint, to a configurable tab. You can also do SharePoint full page and SharePoint web part. So you can also push it as a SharePoint web part these days with the newest version. So that's already cool because then you only need to build one app. The same the other way around. So with SharePoint, you can do it as a Teams app. A Teams app you can also do as a SharePoint web part or as a SharePoint full page app. It's a little bit difficult to find. So if I go to SharePoint, Pro Teams, wait, what's my SharePoint URL? The easiest way to find your SharePoint URL is if you go here, open in SharePoint, there we go. Let's just authenticate, and then if we go to pages, it's a little bit hidden if you want to add a Teams app. So new page, new site page. Oh no, and then we have to, no, actually it's add an app. Was it? Yep, add an app. A page, and then it goes like this. Whoop, and there normally we could use a template. Come on. So add an app. There we go. No, that's an app. Yeah, it's well hidden. I can find it for you, but even I have trouble finding it. So it's always a pain in the ass to find it. So back to our Teams app. Much better. I want to see code. So what else cool stuff we can do? What else cool stuff we can do is, for instance, we can leverage default capabilities of HTML5 because Teams tab is an iframe. So if you don't believe me, let's close this one. So your app, so my company news, this is just an iframe. So see, if you go a little bit up, where is it? Extension, diff, lots of code, but it should be, there we go. See, iframe. So there's nothing fancy about it. It's not, Teams is not using any fancy new things. It's just an iframe like we used to do it 20 years already. So, okay, it has a lot of other stuff, but meaning if it's an iframe, you can do whatever you want with HTML5 data. So if I go back to my, for instance, my static app, my company app, my lunch, you can just say, okay, let's leverage the HTML5 location. So I'm just asking my browser for my location. So I'm here. As you can see here, I didn't do anything. I just got my location. How do we do that? Well, if we go to our static tab, so our lunch, as you can see here, always initialize themes. The rest is authentication. I'll show you that at the end of the session, because that's then the difficult part starts. But so always initialize, and then if we go to our lunch, so lunch location, nothing fancy. We just put a button here to go back, and we just put a map, and everything else is just, I don't know if anybody has already worked with the Google Map API, but you just add the Google Map API, and in your JavaScript, you just, okay, it's default code. You can find this online. So we ask the browser, hey browser, can I use the geolocation of you? So we add some default geolocation, and then HTML5 geolocation. So get the geolocation, add a position, add a marker, and put that in the mapping area of the browser, so where you can see it. So visit our on-site location, and it gets the location. If you guys should do it, you get your own location. Same for in Node, we do the same thing. So company app Node. If we just say location, see, this is a little bit of different implementation. So this is already zoomed in pretty much. So as you can see here, still Belgium, but this is my home, actually, where I'm at. So let's go back. Now, we can also use other HTML5 capabilities. So this is a lunch application. So let's say, for instance, I want to give feedback, but I want to know how the lunch was looking at, or if there was something wrong with somebody's sandwich, like it looked like a total badass sandwich. Then we can give feedback, meaning we can also access the HTML5. Okay, but because I'm already using my camera, of course, the HTML5 implementation for the usage of the camera. So the browser can also use the camera. So let's take some. See, this one doesn't work, of course, because I'm already using my camera in this instance. So let's go back. Let's see if I do a refresh, will it fix? I just turned off my camera now, so it should work. Yeah, you cannot use your camera twice, of course. So give feedback. Let's see if it works. No. Let me see if I can go to settings. See if I can switch my camera real quick. Privacy and security, site settings, camera. I should do my integrate. Let's take the other camera. See if that works. Let's take my camera. Give feedback. Yeah, see, this is me, and this is my green screen behind me. So we can just leverage the HTML5 capabilities, and you can even, if I click a button here, I can even take pictures. So we can take a lot of pictures. And if you have a board, there's online, you can find lots of stuff to create your own Snapchat filters with the HTML5 capabilities. So you can just say, okay, I have a bad sandwich and I'm taking a picture, and you can send that back. So there's a lot of cool stuff with the HTML5 stuff, things you can do. And the cool thing about Teams is it will just allow it. It will allow it. There's a trick to it, of course, because you have to, there's a little bit of security built in. So Teams doesn't allow it by default. But if you say, okay, Teams, I want those device permissions, so you have to ask them twice. You have to ask them, browser, can I use the geolocation or the media? But you also have to say in your manifest, hey, Teams, I want to use the geolocation or the media. Otherwise, of course, you could create an app that secretly uses the camera of users, or secretly maps the geolocation of the users. Yeah, of course, Microsoft doesn't want that way, so you have to add those device permissions. So you add those in your manifest, and then let's see the feedback, for instance. Yeah, pretty simple. Hey, browser, can I use the camera and the microphone? We create a canvas element, and then we just say, okay, get the current media. And if we click, that's just a video stream. And then if we take a click button, so if somebody clicks the button, then just draw an image from that video stream. So I don't know how many lines of code is this? 30 lines of code with a lot of spaces in between, just to get the camera working. So yeah, you can do lots of cool stuff within. You could actually build teams within Teams to call people. So yeah, okay, I don't recommend you should do that. Building teams within your own team calling system within Teams, but it would be entirely possible with HTML5. So those were the HTML5 things. Now, I promised I came back to this about Google. So let's say, for instance, we went to our website. So Google is refusing to connect. Why is that? So if I click on this one, it actually is Google. So why is that? Because Google, same for Microsoft, if you log into the portal.office.com, the login screen and stuff like that, they're telling the browser, hey, this cannot be iframe. I told you guys, this is just a stupid iframe, but Google says, no, you cannot iframe our page. So it's using something special. It's not something special. It's just something you add to your request and says you cannot iframe my page. So normally, if we would do this to our company news, we would get the same. Why? Because it's default browser security these days. So we also have to tell Teams, hey Teams, please open up our company news so that you can show it. Actually, this is a bit also this is between Teams and Google as well, because Teams is also not blocking Google. As you saw that in the manifest, let's go back to our manifest. See, you have to add your valid domains. So I had to tell Teams, hey Teams, the things I want to show, the tabs I want to show, those are on this domain, and then Teams will open it. So if you have issues building apps for Teams, tabs for Teams, and you get like, okay, refusing to connect, then don't forget to add this one. You need to add the valid domains one, or it just won't connect, because Teams will not add everything just as they want to. No, there's a little bit of security added to the instance. So don't forget that one. Okay, now let's go back to the slides. So remember, tabs are iframe. That's what I couldn't get the name of it. So it's called content security policy and same origin policy. Those prevent so that a web page is making requests to a different domain. So because Teams runs in your team runs under the domain Microsoft.com, it's not just that simple to get the information from another domain. So that's why you need to tell Teams, hey Teams, you can open it up. So remember that tabs are iframe, and that you have to keep those two in mind, those content security policies. We already did the demo. And then the HTML5 capabilities. Remember, you can just get access to the camera, the microphone, location. You can even add notifications. Yeah, I'm in a Teams call, so there are some notifications built in. I already do some, but you don't see them because, yeah, now I'm on the focus mode and then notification doesn't happen. But then normally you would get like this small thing here where it says notifications. See here, manage notifications, and then you would get some stuff in there. But yeah, because now I'm on focus mode because I'm calling, it doesn't work that way. But you could even, get people notified. Now, let's go into a little bit more difficult stuff. You can look it up when you start with it, but it's pretty cool stuff. So, as you saw, I had to give in my location, and I have to say in lunch, okay, you're from the Japan office or you're from the Europe office. Yeah, it's not fun for people to give that location, because they think, hey, God damn, I'm already logged in. I'm already in Teams, and here is my name. Why do you still need me to log in or to get your name? So we need to have a way that our app can log into Teams. Again, the Teams SDK to the rescue. So we need to log in. Now we have two ways of logging in. So if I go to my lunch, we can have a pop-up. So the pop-up that logs in, and then of course, if you have single sign-on at your company, that pop-up will automatically push through. Okay, no problem. But you can also use silent authentication. So I'll stop this one for a second. Let's just use the pop-up authentication. I'll undo this one. Let's start it again. We're good to go. There we go. So if I'm going to use my lunch one, this one, yeah, it's not running yet. There we go. I'm probably still logged in. Yeah, probably still logged in. Maybe if I do a refresh. Come here, refresh. Yeah, I'm probably still logged in. Let's see if the other one will work. If I go to Node. See, here I have a login button. So I just put it in the Node one. I actually put a button behind it to show you. So you get like this pop-up, and then, okay, Microsoft Teams tab will start up, and you will go to the authentication flow. What's happening in this authentication flow? See, we're getting a lot of information back. So I'm already logged in, so it will log in. It will get my cookie, of course, and will know that I'm logged in. It will take some time. But people, also because I'm already logged into my laptop and stuff like that, but normally you would get a pop-up. You have to use your username and password again. So if I go to the auth.js, so how does this work? Well, okay, Microsoft Teams, we get our context, and then this is, of course, we use the adal.js stuff, and we say, okay, go to Azure AD authentication endpoint. We use a client ID, of course, and we say, okay, I want the token and I want this scope, so I want to read who the user is. And then once you're logged in, then go to the authentication.close, and then so this is all just default adal msl.js. So once we log in, as you can see here, now it knows my location. Why? Because that location was filled into Active Directory. So it can just get my information for Active Directory. Let's do the same for if I go to lunch.js. As you can see here, so that's automatically added to local storage, of course, your tokens. Yeah, it's a little bit of boilerplate code. So we need to see if we're already logged in. So is there an error with logging in? Do we already have an access token? Do we have already, is there already a logged in state? Yes, no, okay, then we need to show that pop-up and we need to log in. And then, of course, once we get our access token, we go to the Microsoft Graph and we say, okay, this is our barrier token, just get me my office location. So as you can see here, if I go to my old company app, then you can also, you just should see my location. Normally, I think is it running? Yeah, it should be running. Good. Let's just do the silent one, should be better. So if I go to back to my index, and if I, there we go, let's just add this one. This one is the silent one. Why? Because it's a little bit less intrusive for end users. So if we go to lunch silent, so it's a little bit more code. Yeah, I'll share the code afterwards. So once we start logging, opening our app, okay, we have a client ID, of course, not a secret because we're logging in from our browser, so we don't, otherwise the user can find out our browser. So it's a combination of client ID and then username and password when you log in. And then we send people to the lunch out silent, and we cache out. Of course, we use the local storage for caching. Not always a good idea, but okay, because you can get the bearer token out of local storage. If you can do it, other people can do it. But yeah, that's an entirely different discussion. And then we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to load the data, see if there's a cached user, and otherwise just log in, go to the graph, and get the user profile token. So this, if I reload this one, see if I can log in. See, now it just went to the browser. It went to the graph, and it got my location, Belgium. Yeah, I can show you the debug stuff, but that's boring. So if we go to our launch controller, as you can see here, let's do it again. But then I think this one was all silent, so normally this should get hit. So if we do a reload of the app, oh, there it does. This one, then yeah, we're already cached. So it is JavaScript caching. We're not gonna get in here, of course. I need to clear in my entire browser, and then we can get in here and we can get the information. So also something to keep in mind, you need to, of course, have some authentication. Then you can go to the graph, and then you don't need to ask for the location anymore, or you don't need to ask for somebody's email address because you already know all that information. You already can get that information out of the Microsoft Graph. Pretty cool stuff. But yeah, the authentication part can get pretty difficult suddenly, so you have to be careful. Let's see, you gotta do the same. So if you go to a personal tab, we're gonna see if you're logged in. If you're not logged in, then we're gonna get, where's my login button? Here, login. So if we go to login, then display login. So if I go here, so Microsoft Teams Authenticate. So as you can see here, this is also the Teams client SDK that helps us with the login. Why? Because you, like I just said, it's an iframe, so you're bound to certain rules. One of those rules, of course, is you cannot get a pop-up. You cannot connect to other domains, stuff like that. Teams will do that for you. You will say, okay, you can do that just for the authentication part. If we're going to go to the auth part, if it works, get the user profile. If it fails, then login failed. We do the same here. So we get our information and we log in and we have our end user. So pretty cool stuff. Now, I think that was the last slide. I'm going to need to have some time for some questions. So that was the last demo. I'll be sharing stuff afterwards. If you have some questions, just send me an old-fashioned email if you want to, or find me on Twitter or GitHub, or yeah, look at my blog. I haven't logged in a while yet, so I have to do that again. My name is Rick. I work at Advantive. I'm an MVP. BWork is the user group, so we do the same thing, but then in Belgium as today. And I just wrote a book on Pro Teams development. So if you're interested in from beginning to end, if I went too fast, then in the Pro Teams development, we start from the beginning for Node.js and for C# as well. And I hope you had a great day. And thank you for listening to my last session. Any questions? No questions?
Yeah.
I'm looking at the no questions.
Yeah, you got a question like any tips for the beginners learning path?
Yep. Of course, there's a wait. Let me open up my browser. So if you go to I don't know the URL from my hand, but Teams development, there's already a cool start from the Microsoft Teams. So even in my book, we don't start. I'm not starting. So news to Microsoft Teams development. I don't start with this setup because this is pretty simple. You can really start to build something really quickly. So there's a lot of boilerplate code that already been is prepared for you. So let's say you want to start from the beginning. First, you have to pick your poison. So the cool thing about Teams is you can build in C# or Node.js. So if whatever you're comfortable with, okay, you can also, I've seen Java apps as well for Teams, and you can go whatever you want, or Angular, but the default or the generator will generate Node.js code with TypeScript. And the plugin for Visual Studio. So I have the plugin for Visual Studio here. So this is the plugin for Visual Studio. You can just say, okay, I want a new app, and it will create a new app for you. This will do it in plain vanilla JavaScript. The generator will do it in Node in TypeScript, and the Visual Studio one. So if you install I think I can just say new project. And if you install a plugin for Visual Studio, you will just start with the C# one. So normally there should be a file new project. So it's just a plugin for Visual Studio. See, you can just say Microsoft Teams app, C#, and you're good to go. Next, you can just say, give it a name, and then you can just say, next question is, okay, what do you want to build? Do you want to build an extension, a tab? The good tip is start with tabs. Those are the simplest things. Why? Because they're just iframes. So if you have an existing application, you can just port it, just create a manifest. So if you have an existing application, I recommend you just do the App Studio. So it's plugin from Microsoft in Microsoft Teams. Open the App Studio. This will help you create your manifest. So the file you need to upload to Teams. Create a new app and just link your new app. So fill in the name, fill in the information. It will help you give it a unique ID and just say, okay, I want the tab, and link that to an existing application, and you already have an existing application directly into Teams. It's 5 minutes work, and people can access your app. So this is the best way to get started. Wait, let me see if there are any questions. So in the beginning, the learning path is it's not that steep. Everybody can learn tabs. Everybody can build that. Those are, if you know a little bit of HTML, you can already start building tabs. The Microsoft Teams toolkit, so you have one for Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio, and then okay, it can also help you with the single sign-on, like I just showed you. There's a lot of tutorials to get started, and then once you're started, we also have, if you go to selectedtech.show, this is a I can't type anymore. Selectedtech.show. I also run a YouTube channel and a podcast. You can also listen to it as a podcast with my 3 MVP buddies, Tommy, Appy, and Stefan. And that's all around because bots are also integrated into Teams. So it's all about AI and SharePoint, or bots, or all that stuff. So we have how to get Teams messaging extensions, how to talk with Blazor for Teams, and all that stuff. So if you're interested, we also have a YouTube channel, or you can just listen to the podcast. We convert the YouTube videos to podcast, and then we publish those out. So we get together sometimes, and we start talking about all that stuff. That was just with us 4. So that's us 4, and then we do a lot of team stuff and a lot of bot stuff and a lot of AI stuff. So if you're interested, wait, I'll put this in the channel. There you go. And then I would suggest, so the quickest thing to start is with the App Studio. Just download the app from the store. So if you just go to more apps, App Studio, there we go. And you can just start with it, and it will just help you create the manifest already. Okay, it doesn't help you to build code, but it will help you to create, okay, I want a tab. What do I need? I want a bot. Or what do I need? I want a connector. I want a messaging extension. And it will help you set up everything, how you can get going. And I think if you really want the easiest way to get a bot going is if you go to qnamaker.ai. I hope everybody knows that. Probably they do. So you can create a Q&A bot. And if you deploy that as a bot, you can just say deploy to Teams, and it's already good to go. So any more questions? Any more questions?
I think there is no other questions.
No more questions?
Yeah. Thank you, Rick.
No problem. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, thank you. It was awesome. Thanks for your time.